Hi, this is David at TED-IELTS, and today I'm going to show you how to structure your IELTS writing Task 1 map descriptions. There are various ways you could do this successfully, but I want to guide you through two of the easiest and most effective ways to structure your essay. This video is divided into chapters, which you can find in the timeline below. Use these to jump backwards and forwards if you need to, but I do recommend watching the whole thing for the maximum benefit. You can also turn on the subtitles if you're having trouble understanding me. Okay, let's begin our lesson. Before we get into the details of writing an IELTS map report, we need to think about what is required in terms of structure. If we look at the IELTS band descriptors, we can see that there is nothing specifically mentioned. And that's because there is no template you need to stick to in order to write a good essay. However, it does say a few things that you need to keep in mind. Most importantly, in order to get even a band 6 for coherence and cohesion, which is the part most affected by structure, you need to, quote, arrange information and ideas coherently, and there should be a clear overall progression. To get even band 5, your essay must present information with some organization. This means that the information you choose to describe should be put into an essay in a logical and reasonable way, which is easy for your reader to understand. To do this, you need to first group your data and then put that data into paragraphs. Whilst for descriptions of line graphs, process diagrams, bar charts, and so on, you might have to make difficult choices. For maps, it's pretty easy to determine. That's because you're always given two maps. I'll explain that in the next section of the video, but if you want to learn more about coherence and cohesion, you should check out this video up here. First of all, you should note that an IELTS Task 1 report, whilst different from the standard Task 2 essay, should also feature an introduction, and it should give some sort of overview of the information presented. When describing line graphs, bar charts, and so on, this means identifying and reporting a general trend. With maps, it is a bit harder, but serves fundamentally the same purpose. The important thing is that you should divide your introduction into two sentences. The first will simply state what this report is about, in this case a map, and the second will give the overview. Let's take this map as our first example. It is from Cambridge IELTS 16, which is the most recent in the Cambridge IELTS book series. My first sentence would introduce the reader by imagining that they cannot see it. I need to tell them what the map is about in straightforward terms. For example, I might say, there are two maps, one of which shows the current state of Southwest Airport and the other what it will look like after its proposed redevelopment. This is nice and easy. The next sentence will give an overview, which in this case would be something like, primarily the airport will grow in size, but also it will gain various amenities. You don't need to give too much detail here, and as there is no general trend, it can sometimes be hard to figure out what should be included. But in this case, it seemed clear to me that the airport would grow and new amenities would be added, so I said that. I know that a lot of IELTS tutors recommend writing two introductory paragraphs with the overview separate from the first sentence. Whilst this is not completely wrong, it's also not an ideal method. Think about it logically for just a second. Knowing what we do about coherence and cohesion and task achievement, does it really seem like a good idea to have single sentence paragraphs? These show absolutely no development or thought or linking of ideas. Thus, I strongly recommend writing one paragraph that contains both an introductory and an overview sentence. Okay, so once you've written your introduction, you need to move on to the main body paragraphs, and I always recommend writing two of these. That's because IELTS maps always come in pairs. The easiest way to describe these maps is to use a 3-paragraph structure that gives one main paragraph for each map. This works nicely regardless of whether you have a past and present map or a present and future map. To do this, simply look at the first map and describe it in the first body paragraph. Then look at the second map and describe it in the next paragraph. Remember that you don't need to describe every single detail. You only need to highlight key features and show comparisons, which means picking out the most important stuff. For my first paragraph, I would say something like, Southwest Airport is currently divided into departures and arrivals areas prior to the passport control area, with a number of gates beyond this. In the departures section, there is a cafe and check-in desk, but in the arrivals area, there's nothing. For those leaving, there is a passport control section prior to the security area, and for those leaving, there is a passport control area prior to customs. In terms of gates, there are only 8, and so these are connected by a short walkway. You'll notice that I've described everything on the map, which is not always a great idea, but I did not feel that anything was particularly important or unimportant here. Besides, I was able to capture all in a reasonable number of words, so it didn't go overboard. For my next paragraph, I will describe the changes. I would say something like, after its redevelopment, Southwest Airport will look quite different. Most notably, the concourse will be vastly expanded from 8 gates to 18. The increased size means that there will be a SkyTrain connecting these rather than a walkway. In the main terminal, various changes will take place. The departures area will have a bag drop, and the cafe and check-in desk will be moved, whilst beyond the security area there will be shops. The arrivals area will have a cafe, ATM, and a car hire desk. So that's my first sample answer using this handy structure. It works really well for almost all maps, but actually for this particular map, I found it was maybe not the best method. I'm going to show you what I prefer to use for this map in the next section. My next essay structure is a bit strange and usually I would not recommend it, except that for this particular map, it works quite well. Basically, the idea is to break the maps into sections and compare those over time within each paragraph. In this case, that means looking at the concourse section of the airport for one paragraph, and then the main terminal section for the other paragraph. In describing the concourse area, I might say something like, at present, Southwest Airport has 8 gates, but next year it is expected to have 18. This will drastically increase the size of the airport. To service this expansion, the small walkway that presently helps travelers get from the security zone to their gate will be converted into a longer SkyTrain. This is a simple explanation that presents a clear idea for the reader, and it really highlights the changes made, which is a small improvement over the previous approach. It is also a lot shorter, so it takes less time to write, which is a good thing. My next paragraph would say, in the main building, there will be no change in terms of size or fundamental layout. However, there will be many more amenities added. At the departures area, the cafe and check-in desk will swap places and a bag drop will be added. After departure, there will also be shops. At the arrivals area, there will be an ATM and a cafe added, as well as a car hire booth. Again, this is shorter and more straightforward. It really emphasizes the changes that have taken place, which is important, and focuses only on the most important parts of the map. Of those two methods, which do you think is the best? Leave a comment down below and let me know. Personally, I like number 1 more for most IELTS maps, but for this particular one, I thought that method 2 led to a better description. Ultimately, though, it is up to you and to the map. There's no perfect pattern or set formula you can follow for an amazing essay. You have to make your own choices and do so carefully. Generally speaking, I feel that method 1 is the best approach for most maps, and I usually recommend this to all my students. I typically use it for my sample Band 9 answers as well, as you will see if you search TED-IELTS.com for map descriptions. However, method 2 suited this particular task. There were various reasons for this. First of all, looking at the maps, I realized they were quite hard actually, even for a native speaker to describe. I could not immediately find the right words for the different parts of the airport, with words like concourse being hard to remember. However, by focusing on key areas, I was able to write the second essay more easily, and it was also shorter, so it took me less time to write it. In the end, there are numerous ways to write IELTS essays, and you will not be penalized for not following some pre-written formula. Just be aware that your description should be clear and accurate, with your ideas grouped and sequenced logically. I think that the two methods I've shown you today are the best, but if you have others, then let me know in the comments. I'd like to see them. Well, that's all for today, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. I post a new one every Friday, and they are packed full of realistic and actionable advice that aims to help you get a better score in your next IELTS test.